The city of Briarwood had always been a bustling and lively place. Located in the heart of the Midwest, it was a hub for commerce and industry. But on the night of July 5th, everything changed. The entire city vanished without a trace. At first, no one noticed. It wasn't until the next morning when people started to ask questions. Where had Briarwood gone? Had there been some kind of natural disaster? An earthquake or a sinkhole, perhaps? The government sent in search parties, but they found nothing. The city had simply vanished, leaving behind only empty streets and abandoned buildings. It was as if Briarwood had never existed. The survivors were few and far between. Some had been on vacation or out of town at the time of the disappearance. Others had been lucky enough to be on the outskirts of the city and had managed to escape the mysterious event unscathed. One such survivor was a young woman named Anna. She had been visiting her parents in a small town just outside of Briarwood when it happened. She was the only one in her family who had made it out alive. Anna was determined to find out what had happened to her hometown. She gathered together a group of survivors, including a police officer named Jack and a scientist named Dr. Lee, and they set out to unravel the mystery. Their first clue came from a strange device that Dr. Lee had been working on. It was designed to detect anomalies in the fabric of space-time, and it had been set up on the outskirts of Briarwood. The device had picked up an unusual reading just before the city disappeared. Dr. Lee believed that it was some kind of interdimensional rift, a tear in the fabric of reality that had swallowed Briarwood whole. The group set out to find the source of the rift. They traveled deep into the countryside, following the readings from the device. Eventually, they came across a strange building, hidden away in a secluded valley. The building was like nothing any of them had ever seen before. It was a massive, towering structure made of black metal and pulsing with an eerie energy. They approached cautiously, unsure of what they would find inside. As they entered the building, they were met with a sight that chilled them to the bone. The interior was like something out of a nightmare. The walls were lined with strange, glowing symbols, and the air was thick with a palpable sense of dread. They soon discovered that the building was a research facility, run by a group of scientists who had been experimenting with interdimensional travel. They had accidentally opened a portal to another world, and Briarwood had been pulled into it. The scientists had been trapped in the building ever since, unable to escape the nightmare world they had created. They begged the survivors for help, telling them that they were the only ones who could shut down the rift and save Briarwood. Anna and her companions knew that it wouldn't be easy. They would have to navigate the twisted, otherworldly landscape and face unimaginable horrors along the way. But they were determined to save Briarwood, no matter the cost. As they traveled deeper into the rift, they encountered strange creatures that defied description. They were nightmarish beasts, spawned from the twisted energies of the other world. But Anna and her companions were determined, and they fought on, pushing deeper into the unknown. Finally, they reached the heart of the rift. There, they found a massive device, powered by the energies of the other world. They knew that they had to shut it down, but it would be a dangerous and delicate operation. Working together, they managed to disable the device, and the rift slowly began to close. They could feel the energy of the other world fading away, and the air grew less oppressive with every passing moment. They knew that they had succeeded. But as they made their way back to the surface, they were met with a horrifying sight. The scientists who had been trapped in the facility had been consumed by the energies of the other world. twisted and deformed into monstrous abominations. The survivors fought desperately, knowing that they were facing their final battle. They battled against the mutated scientists and their monstrous creations, fighting for their lives as they made their way back to the surface. Finally, they emerged from the facility, battered and bruised but alive. They looked out over the valley and saw that the rift had closed, and Briarwood had returned to its rightful place in the world. The survivors gathered together, their hearts heavy with the knowledge of the horrors they had faced. They knew that they had saved Briarwood, but at a great cost. As they made their way back to civilization, they pondered what they had learned. They realized that there were forces in the universe that were beyond their understanding, and that meddling with them could lead to untold horrors. They knew that they had to keep their discovery a secret, to ensure that no one else would fall victim to the same fate as Briarwood. They pledged to keep the memory of their fallen city alive, as a warning to future generations. In the end, the survivors parted ways, each carrying with them the weight of what they had witnessed. They knew that they had been changed forever by their experiences, and that they would never be able to forget the horrors of that fateful night. As for Briarwood, it was never quite the same. The survivors who returned to the city found it to be a haunted and empty place, haunted by the memory of what had happened. But they vowed to rebuild, to create new Briarwood from the ashes of the old, and to never forget the lessons they had learned. After the survivors returned to civilization, they reported the disappearance of Briarwood to the authorities, but their claims were met with skepticism and disbelief. No evidence of the city's existence could be found, and the government quickly dismissed the story as a hoax or a hallucination. However, over the years, more and more people began to come forward with stories of a mysterious city that had vanished without a trace. These reports were initially dismissed as urban legends, but as the stories continued to mount, the government was forced to take notice. Eventually, a team of investigators was dispatched to the site of the former city. They discovered the ruins of Briarwood, along with evidence of the experiments that had caused its disappearance. The government was forced to admit that the survivors' story was true, and the incident was classified as a top-secret event. The knowledge of what had happened was kept hidden from the general public, known only to a select few in the highest levels of government. The survivors, for their part, were able to move on with their lives, though the memory of Briarwood continued to haunt them. They knew that they had been lucky to escape with their lives, and they vowed to never forget the lessons they had learned. In the end, the disappearance of Briarwood became a cautionary tale, a reminder of the dangers of meddling with forces beyond our understanding. It remained a mystery to most, but for those who had lived through it, it was a moment that would stay with them forever.